Hello, buddy. Welcome back to Final Whistle. David Giacomino, Kevin Walsh here, as always. And we're here to bring you our last show of, actually, at Iona Careers. So, Kev, how you doing?
I'm good. Now let's make it clear. I still got a whole nother year, but
Oh, yeah.
but
I'm,
the last Dave Giacomino appearance, man. What a time to be alive.
it's been a good ride, you know? I mean, you started the show, what, 2 years ago? I think it is now.
Man, I remember it was me and Johnny Diaz down here for the first off the bounce, and then I hit you up. I'm like, Dave, come on, like let's come join us on here, and we've been doing shows
Oh, man.
ever since. We've been doing podcasts and stuff. It's been it's been fun. It's gonna be different next year. I know that for sure. It's gonna be a little weird feeling.
It's gonna be different. Like, you're not gonna be able to send me a text, yo, and let's get food, and then
Yeah, I mean, I luckily though, like I'm confident that we'll still yell at each other through text.
oh, obviously,
You
come
know,
on.
it was just always very calming knowing that I would see you within the next week though to really hash out these arguments and fully
because
explain one another each other.
It gets to the point where we just keep saying the same thing over and over. And I'm like, I'm not. I can't. It's nothing's. I'm not gonna get through this, kid. I can't. I have to stop.
It's like Spellman tomorrow. You're gonna be there. We'll talk this out. You may have to take a couple trips up to Spellman. I normally have extra on-campus money anyway. I'll treat to a couple meals.
I'll definitely be here, especially if I'm working somewhat in the vicinity in the area. I gotta stop by and make an appearance. No.
Now, one of the things I think safe to say we've been having our most recent arguments are strictly Mets based.
Oh yeah, and because as the Mets have been getting better, that just makes my ego rise even more. And as the Mets have gotten better, the Yankees have just gotten worse. So my arguments have just been able to just rise and rise and rise, and you know.
I mean, we could start at the bottom of it. I mean, the New York Yankees are in a really, really different position, I think is the word I want to use there. Because I remember when we were doing a early 2016 preview after the World Series had ended, and we were saying, what's the outlook on the Mets and the Yankees? Because obviously, we're going to cover the two New York teams. And we were both kind of saying, the Yankees may have to accept a year, two, maybe three of being bad as they start to develop younger guys and introduce new faces to the franchise while saying goodbye to some old ones. And, I think that's kind of what's going on with the Yankees. They spent no money throughout the offseason, and they're in a position right now where you're slowly going to start to see a transition. By the time 2018 rolls around, a lot of your everyday players are going to be very different, I anticipate.
Yeah, and the last couple of years, they haven't spent any money, yes, but I just don't know what the reason is. Is it because of the luxury tax? They don't want to spend money because of the Steinbrenners don't want to pay? Is it because they're saving up for Bryce Harper? That so many people have been saying, the year that he's a free agent, they're getting so many people off the books. A-Rod, Teixeira, Sabathia, and are they going to be in a position to dish out all of this money and go back to being the powerhouse that they normally are? But I'm really just not convinced that the Steinbrenners are going to do that, because they clearly do not have the same mindset as George Steinbrenner. So things might not be, going back to what Yankee fans are accustomed to if they're not comfortable with spending all of this money.
I think that the the trade deadline is going to be pretty telling. I doubt the Yankees are in first place at the trade deadline like they were last season. I highly doubt that. So, what are the moves that are made? How far out of you of the division lead, and what seems to be the necessary moves?
But yeah, and if you look at overall roster, I don't think they're in a position to make a move for a hitter, because let's face it, they don't have a place to put him.
Right.
A-Rod's locked in at that DH position, so that's not an option. And the outfield is pretty crowded right now, so they don't have enough place there. And the infield, pretty much too. They got a good. I mean, they got their guys in place. So unless you're going to sit these guys that are making a lot of money, they're not really in a position to do anything other than starting pitching, which is a huge need right now.
I mean, the bats are kind of they're set how they are, and I wouldn't really look to the bats as a massive problem. I think there's a lot of guys you can have confidence in throughout the lineup. But I mean, for right now, it just feels like a lot of them are going through some cold spells, at some inopportune times. But again, I really think that Yankees fans are going to have to look towards, you know, the future. When Mark Teixeira is no longer a Yankee, when Alex Rodriguez no longer plays baseball, same with Carlos Beltran, CC Sabathia, Brett Gardner will likely find a new team. Wouldn't be surprised if so did Jacoby Ellsbury. Brian McCann could retire. I mean, right there, we're naming everyday players.
Yeah.
Every single day, outside of CC Sabathia.
And that's
so
millions of dollars coming off the books. I mean, A-Rod alone is about 30 million.
I mean, that's one of the big things that, it's been pretty obvious that the Yankees don't have that same mentality that we're going to buy and spend and spend and spend until we're the best. However, once all these players clear off, there's just going to be so much money that it's not going to feel the same. It's almost going to be like, well, there's just so much money. They just have all these needs, and they're just going to go out and address them. But the thing that's interesting for the Yankees is they haven't traded the farm system away. There are guys down there like a Jorge Mateo or a Gary Sanchez or an Aaron Judge who Yankees fans are waiting on and excited to see them come up. And you saw that happen a bit last year when Greg Bird made his appearance, who people were kind of excited for this year. Obviously, he went down injury. People were even excited for Ref Schneider. People were very excited for Severino, despite his current struggles right now. But, that's it.
Yeah, and
the Yankees are having a transition period,
and that's nice to see if you're a Yankees fan, because that's what got them. That's what got them World Series rings back in the late '90s, early in 2000.
Mm-hmm.
They had their core four that they always talk about, and those guys came up from the farm system, and they brought these guys up, and they put other pieces around them. They spent a little money there, and they had a very solid team that just was not going to be beaten in any of those years. And that's what, I think they're really going back to. They're bringing up these guys from the system. They're creating a better, overall team, because when you spend all of this money, it's going to come back to haunt you. Yes, you're going to get a good 3, maybe 4 years out of these free agents, but a lot of the time when you're giving out 5-6 year deals, the back end of these deals are not going to be bright years for these guys. CC Sabathia was a dominant pitcher the first half of his deal.
Mm-hmm.
Now the back end, not so much. He's a very different pitcher, and the outcomes have been very different.
And not only does the talent level decrease, but the injury risk increases.
Yeah.
I mean, you see it with Teixeira. It just feels like every year you're waiting on him to come down with something.
That's why when before the season, when they they were going over the roster, they were like, all right, we have Greg Bird in AAA. Teixeira's gonna get hurt eventually. Then we'll bring him up. But that was before Greg Bird had the season-ending injury. So it looks like he's been healthy for the most part, and he's been streaky. So we'll got to see if he's gonna stay healthy all year.
Yeah, I mean, and that's gonna be the really interesting thing though for the Yankees is how they move forward. Because right now though the big thing that a lot of people are now questioning is the starting pitching. And it comes with reason. Listen, Nathan Eovaldi, as fun as he is and as much potential as he may have, the dude would probably have lost his starting role if he didn't get more run support than any pitcher I can remember. CC Sabathia, we mentioned CC's going to be on his way out relatively soon, more likely than not. Tanaka, there's tons of concerns as far as his injuries go. Severino right now is the young kid, so you're gonna roll with the punches and let him just get accustomed to the majors, even though he's struggling right now.
Yeah.
And then Pineda's just been rough, so the pitching's it's all over the place.
Yeah, and with all these guys, we've heard so much about their the bullpen, and what that situation. But if they don't have a lead with the game, this bullpen can't do anything, and we've seen that the first month of the year. They had these guys have not gotten a chance to do anything with the lead because they haven't got the lead because the starting pitching keeps giving it up. Like we saw last night in Boston, they had a lead I think 3 different times at one point in the game.
But then Betances went and blew the lead. So it's and that to me though is the situation that the Yankees are in, where they need Betances and Miller to be perfect.
And that's the thing,
Perfect.
because you can we talked about this so much last year in the first half of the Mets. It's very hard to pitch when you're like, oh, I can't give up any runs. I gotta be perfect, and it's so hard to pitch like that because there's so much pressure, and it's
Hmm.
hard to have the same stuff, have the same be the same type of pitcher when you're pitching like that. It's so difficult for these guys. We saw Patansis; he made a mistake to David Ortiz, sent it over the fence. So
Yeah.
it's very difficult.
Now, but I think too. I think that we can agree that the Yankees are in a position where they're just going to be looking towards the future. And I think that as long as the Yankee faithful can kind of understand that, how Mets fans had to, were forced to understand that for a while, you just kind of wait it out, and you enjoy what you can. You enjoy the final years of A-Rod, of Teixeira, and you enjoy watching players like Starlin Castro and Didi Gregorius grow, and you wait until it all comes together.
Yeah, and as these young guys come up, as Mets fans, well, no, when these guys come up, that's very exciting. It's very you want to see what these kids have and if they're the real deal. And Mets fans well know that. They saw all their starting pitching come up. They saw Michael Conforto come up. Like they're excited to see if these kids are the real deal. Greg Bird, very excited to see him come up last year, and the things that he did were very exciting. So as these players come up, it'll be very interesting for Yankee fans and exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. Now you look at it on the other side, the New York Mets. They got off to quite the jump. I mean, it was
It was very shaky at first,
yeah,
I'd say.
it was really up and down, and it was, it was throughout the team, because some of the pitching was okay, but the pitching wasn't even great, and that's where I think some real concern was raised.
Yeah,
But now the hitting is kind of, I gotta say, kind of carrying the load right now. That's just how it looks, and they're now, I think it's 15-7. They're still behind the Nationals, but the outlook for the Mets is very good, and I think that it's time we start really asking ourselves about this. At the end of April, wasn't a team above 500 in the NL West? Not a team. The NL Central, the Cubs are playing as good as everyone thought they would, but the Cardinals don't have that same feel to them. Is the NL East going to send a pair of teams to the playoffs? Because I think that's something that kind of needs to be really considered. I think that, coming into the year, you had the people who were very confident in the Mets, and there were the few people who were confident in the Nationals. And one of the reasons why I think there was such a conflict between those two opposing sides is it really felt like only one could be right, that only one of those teams had a chance to end up in the postseason. But now, especially because those top two teams, the Nationals and the Mets, have the opportunity to beat up on teams like the Atlanta Braves, and how you anticipate they're going to be able to beat up on the Phillies and even the Marlins, that the Nationals and the Mets very well may both end up in the postseason.
that's what it's kind of looking at, that as far as the first month of the season goes. The NL West has been very disappointing. We saw everyone's expecting the Dodgers to be the Dodgers and the Giants to make a big improvement, but we haven't seen it from those teams. But and the Cubs were the Cubs. Everybody knew they were going to be great and far better than everybody. But like you said, the Cardinals were usually always, no matter what moves that they made, the Cardinals were always there, and it just doesn't feel like that this year because they don't have the starting pitching as they normally do. Matt Holliday is getting a little older. The production is not there for him, and the Pirates are the one team where I think they'll be there in the wild card, if not the first one, in the hunt for the second one, because the Pirates have been solid for a few years now, and as long as the Mets and the Nationals can keep beating up on these teams in their division, they're going to look pretty solid to take one of the wild card spots.
But the thing I think that you got to think about is, yes, they have the opportunity to beat up on these bad teams, which can really inflate their records. But the Nationals are hot off a sweep of the Cardinals that put the Cardinals to be under 500. The Mets just took a series from the Giants. Now, I think that we could both agree coming into this season that a lot of people thought the Giants and Cardinals would be a pair of postseason ball clubs. So that to me is the thing, is not only can they really have very good records because the bottom of the division is so poor, but they're capable of beating the better teams in baseball because they are two of the better teams in baseball.
I was just about to ask you, do you think that that is because those teams are weaker than we expected, or do you think it's because the Mets and the Nationals are better than some expected?
I think one of the things that's interesting, right, is considering what you expected from the Mets pitching, I'd say right now it's been underwhelming. It hasn't been the outrageous, dominant, oh my goodness, no one can touch them. They've been very good, but it's been a bit underwhelming. But the bats have really overachieved for the first month. You look at the Nationals, their bats have been underwhelming. Bryce Harper's been as brilliant as you expected. Daniel Murphy's been solid. But, their bats weren't what you expected, but their pitching has really been another level. It's been one of the league's best through the first month. So I think the question is, can these two teams make this kind of the normal? Is the Mets lineup going to actually be reliable? And is the Nationals rotation going to be the same?
Yeah, and one interesting thing about the Mets is that besides from the big 12-run inning on Friday night, they've been doing the majority of what they've done with the home run ball, and that was surprising to a lot of people because I don't know if you saw as much home run power coming into the season as what they're doing right now, because you saw Duda was going to do his thing, Cespedes will do his thing. Nobody saw 9 home runs from Neil Walker, absolutely not, and. Granderson's gonna hit his. David Wright will get his, occasional here and there. But the hitting has been very solid, but that is not a recipe for success to win in the playoffs. The home run ball will go away at some point, and you need to be able to rack up hits and singles and maybe a bases clearing double every now and then. So that's something that needs to be worked on if you're the Mets.
Yeah, I think that's going to be the most interesting thing. Is the Mets lineup just going to be reliable? Is it going to be reliable? Can Noah Syndergaard give up 3 runs in the first 3 innings and Mets fans and people watching it say the Mets are still in it?
Yeah, I think it's getting to the point where they feel that way because, they had about, I think, 7 straight games that they scored first. But
that's been the key for them.
That has been the key. And as a starting pitcher, you get 2 runs in the first inning, you're feeling great going out there for the next inning. You have full confidence. You can make a mistake, but they've also shown this season that they can come back at times when they've been trailing. And we saw it that one game that Cespedes had the pitch hit. that they saw Cespedes hit the pitch hit 3-run shot, and that brought them back into the game. They were down 3-0 at the time. They pitch hit Cespedes, and they come back into the game with a 3-run homer.
Yeah, I think that I think it said that the Mets have scored first in 15 of their last 18 games. Now, as big as it is for the starting pitching to be confident, I think it's important for these bats though to really get this confidence. That's what I think is going to be one of the keys.
I think the biggest person that has benefited from everybody doing well in this lineup is Michael Conforto, because they put him in that three hole. If they have Cespedes hitting, if they have Duda hitting, they got to pitch to this guy. You can't pitch around him. You can't try and walk him, because if you walk him, then you have a man on base for Cespedes who's killing the ball. So they're throwing him a lot of fastballs, and he's doing something with them.
The lineup definitely is at a point right now where it's nowhere near as bad as it started off. And I think that when we first spoke about the Mets, one of the reasons I told you was the Mets lineup is not something you can trust. You don't know exactly what is going to happen. How good is Duda going to be? How good is Conforto going to be? How good is Neil Walker going to be? But as of right now, they've all been very, very good. So that's why it's kind of been all positives. Can it stay this way? And I think that's going to be the biggest question for the Mets moving forward is, can they consistently get production from the lineup. And if that happens, then the Mets are going to win a ton of games. But they're also going to be in a very, very tough race with the Nationals, who right now are playing as good as they were supposed to last year.
Yeah, and we spoke about this a little last week. And with these two teams doing so well, it's going to come down to head-to-head matchups. The head-to-head matchups are going to be huge for these two teams. And I feel like whoever wins these head-to-head matchups are going to end up winning the division.
I mean, it's going to be the thing that really is able to make a huge impact. I would say on everything. It's going to make a huge impact. Of course. I mean, there's no better way to gain games on people than through, the head-to-head matchups. So, it's going to make a big difference. But it's going to be very interesting to follow that. But that to me is one of the bigger takeaways from the first month. If we were maybe the NL East is going to be able to send two teams to the postseason.
And these two teams can be very dangerous because I always tell you this. I always stress pitching wins in the playoffs. And these two teams have the dominant pitching to win in the playoffs.
I think they both have top 5 staffs.
Yeah, and that's dangerous come playoff time. And, whichever one of these teams ends up in the wild card, if that's the case, they're going to send out
a stud,
an ace. And they could have another stud coming behind them. One game playoff, anything goes. They could have another guy coming in right after him. So
I mean, and that's the thing. It's like you see the Nats in a wildcard game, and you get Scherzer. You see the Mets, and it's a Harvey or a DeGrom.
Yeah, that's been the thing for the Pirates.
Yeah, it's gonna be.
No, that's why the Pirates have lost these past few years in the wild card game because they haven't had that stud pitcher that they could go in that one game.
Honestly, I don't even know if that's true because Garrett Cole's been good.
I
they
know.
ran into Madison Bumgarner and then Jake Arrieta.
But that's what I'm saying.
They've just had the worst luck possible in this wild card game, and it unfortunately looks like they're poised to be in it again.
And they could be screwed again.
It's so true.
Because they could run into a Scherzer. They could run into a DeGrom.
That's just it's.
And that's rough if you're a Pirates fan.
Not fair.
That's rough.
Not fair.
But all right, that's pretty. We can wrap it up there. But
yeah, I think so.
Is there anything around baseball that surprised you at all, or?
I'll tell you what. There is one thing that I want to. Do you off the top of your head who knows who leads the majors in home runs with 11?
It's not Bryce Harper, I don't think. No.
9.
No. Story, is it?
He has 10.
That's 10? I don't know that.
It's his teammate, Nolan Arenado. And I'm not putting you on the spot because you don't know that. I didn't even realize that. I happened to just be checking it the other day. Nolan Arenado came into the year a lot of people very high on him. He's going to be great. But, the Rockies are the Rockies. They're obviously not playing well, so no one's talking about it. But Nolan Arenado is off to a pretty impressive start.
Yeah, and
it's kind of going unnoticed, which I find a little interesting.
Well, I think it's going unnoticed because, like you said, it's the Rockies.
Yeah.
And I think the Trevor Story kind of overshadowed him.
That's very true, too.
And with the surprise of Story, he was hitting so many home runs that just overshadowed him and made what he was doing kind of blah because he did it last year. I think he had 30 last year? I think he had maybe 30 35.
Arenado?
Yeah,
he hit a ton. He hit a ton.
So didn't come as a surprise of many people, so it wasn't talked about.
Yeah, that's very true. Another thing, though, that I will say does jump out are two teams on the opposite side of the spectrum. And I'll close this. The Astros have been horrible, and the Chicago White Sox have been very good.
Chicago White Sox have been solid.
Chris Sale looks poised for a Cy Young.
Did you see what he did yesterday? He struck out
a guy out and hit him?
He struck a guy out and it hit him. How do you do that if you're a hitter? I know it's nasty, but that's you're shaking your head if you're a hitter and that happens to you. This might be the year he gets the Cy Young because
they're finally winning baseball games. He's gonna have the win-loss record to match the outrageous strikeout in ERA.
And there hasn't. I can't think off the top of my head another AL pitcher that's been as dominant. Maybe Zimmerman, but
yeah, that's true. Zimmerman's ERA has been outrageous.
I can't see that holding up. It's gonna rise a little bit.
He's given up like 3 runs.
So I don't.
If that.
Yeah. So
yeah.
It's kind of it maybe be between them two, but it's still a long way
Oh,
to
I mean,
go.
yeah, first
we
month,
can have
though.
we can have an Arrieta again. You come out of nowhere.
Well, Arrieta's over in the AL. He's got a .75 ERA, already thrown a
I know,
no-hitter,
I know.
5
I'm just
wins.
saying, we can have someone like him in the
Oh, I get
AL.
what you're saying. I get what
Yeah.
you're saying.
So, because Arrieta had to throw 3 ERA the first half, and
Then he had like a 1.
stud. All right, we'll take a quick break here. We'll come back with some basketball.
I love it.
And
I love it.
get going here.